Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Burwell, your host of VIE Speaks, Conversations with Heart and Soul. As the editor-in-chief of VIE Magazine, I'm so thrilled that we have this opportunity and platform to have conversations with people who have been our cover guys or cover girls and that we featured over the years, friends and colleagues as well. And I am so excited to introduce to you a friend and a colleague of 30 years, Dave Rauschkolb, who is an entrepreneur, owns a culinary empire, and has championed more causes for our area than anyone else that I know. Welcome to the podcast, Dave.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. It's always great to spend time with you.
I know. I love spending time with you, too.
Yeah.
So we'll give the listeners and the viewers a little background. I moved from New England 30 years ago to take a job at Seaside as the merchants marketing director, and that's how we first met. So we go way back, and we've seen the area change so much over time and become something, I don't know if you ever thought that our area would turn into what it's turning into right now. I do many times miss the old days 30 years ago because I thought we had something so magical and secret going on then, but I know growth, is important and it needs to happen for all of our businesses, yours and ours as well. But talk a little bit about now that Seaside is celebrating their 40th year anniversary, and you have been with Seaside since
1986,
okay,
36
years. And so I think it's so interesting, like you being like this, having a culinary empire right now down here and being known far and wide for all that Bud and Alley's and Taco Bar and the Pizza Bar and everything that you brought to the market. But how did you get here? I know the story, but tell the story about how you and your former partner, Scott Wachowski, landed in Seaside.
Well, there's always something I like to say, these are the good old days for the people moving here just now. So when I think back on how we, came to 30A, I was just going to college, trying to extend that experience as long as possible because that would have extended my, having to get a real job. My priorities when I was in my teens, my late teens and early 20s was pretty much just surfing. I competitively surfed for about 4 years and worked in restaurants. And I never really thought that I wanted to be in the restaurant business. The thought never occurred to me because I knew that, the people that I worked for, the managers, they worked a lot. And I didn't know if I wanted to work that hard, right? But I just figured that some sort of career would come along and I would just, go ahead and get my master's degree, just keep going to school because I thought that was a good way to have fun in my 20s. Mm-hmm. So I really didn't have a plan, which,
worked out.
Sometimes the seat of the pants,
right, totally.
Works for some people.
It does.
But yeah, I met Scott Wachowski, my business partner. He was my business partner for 20 years. When we were working in a restaurant in Destin called Les Saisons. And in those days, that was considered fine dining. It was before the California food movement, before Alice Waters and Jeremiah Tower started that farm-to-table kind of revolution of the culinary arts in America. And I was working at this French restaurant. I was lucky to be there because, you could wait on 6 tables and make $150. Yeah. Back then, that was a lot of money.
Right.
And I had previously worked at the Hilton. Everybody worked at the Hilton. Mm-hmm. I opened that place. I was a bellman and a bartender and a dining room server. And before that, back porch. And before that, the oyster shanty next to the original Hog's Breath. And that was where I had 3 bar stools and I shucked oysters. And,
wow.
I've actually shucked oysters in every job, and I continue to shuck oysters at Black Bear.
That's great.
Every now and then I do a guest appearance.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, Robert Davis, developer of Seaside, used to come to all the, he's a big foodie, he and Daryl.
Yeah.
And they would drive all the way to Destin to eat at Les Saisons. And I used to drive down 30A just to go surfing in Panama City because you could go 90 miles an hour and there was no stop signs and you could check the waves along the way and you could sort of get there faster and get a view. So I remember driving through Seaside and it looked kind of like it was some sort of cult or something. Seriously, I'd never seen these little cottages. Yeah. There was only about 12 or 15 houses on Tupelo Street, and then you had Perspicacity and the post office, and it was just it was like, what is this? But I never stopped. I never knew to stop until my partner, Scott, one day we're going surfing in Panama City, and we're driving down 30A, and he said, hey, there's this guy came in and talked to my dad and I about, a restaurant location on the beach. And I was like, Scott, you've already lost your keys, your wallet, it was like we were already in a hurry and the waves were really good, and here he wants to stop.
Oh.
And I was like, Scott, no, do that some other day. Can we just please go surfing? That's what we were trying to do. And but he was driving, and he's a very persuasive guy and a very talented guy. So we met Robert. Robert did his dog and pony show and showed us what Seaside was going to become. And then, he gave us the keys and said, yeah, the restaurant's down there, go have a look. Well, I'm still looking at my watch, and we walk in there. We walk in the dining room, actually the bar area where everybody has been, entering, the main entrance of Bud and Allen's. And I remember looking at the view through that porch, and it was just stunning and gorgeous. But still, I'm like, okay, well, this is cool, let's go. But there had been a restaurant in there previously. It was a turnkey operation. Scott's like going, what do you think? I'm like, about what? And he said, well, you think that a restaurant would work here? And I thought, well, Paradise Cafe, Johnny Earl's place, was very busy. There was only 4 restaurants out here at that time. And I say out here, all of 30A, all of South Walton had 4 restaurants. That was it. So, he got me thinking, and I went and visited my mom that night, and I said, what do you think? And I thought she was going to say, you need to finish college. Well, I was enrolled in my last semester. I was going to get a bachelor's degree. But I'd saved my hard classes for last, and I might not have gotten through statistics still. Still to this day, I probably wouldn't have gotten through it. And so she said, you may never get another chance to open a restaurant. You can always go back to college, go for it.
Good.
So I borrowed, $4,000 from my mom, and he borrowed $6,000 from his. We were 60-40 partners, and 24 hours later, I dropped out of college, and we started planning for Bud and Alley's. That was like October 1985. And we opened January 15th, 1986, and we had about 20 customers. And, back then we didn't have computers, we had typewriters, and I remember people coming in and applying for a job, and I'm interviewing them behind the bar on my typewriter, and, I was pretty good at typer. But anyway, we never could have anticipated, what Seaside would become. But I was, Robert had me at a hello. I loved the blank canvas that 30A was, and I loved the blank canvas that Seaside was. And I especially loved, of course, being in the restaurant business and the excitement of doing that, and having a place on the beach, because Scott and I could have board meetings, we could go surfing.
Right.
Pretty much before and after work.
Which you did do.
Yeah, and we were closed on Tuesdays in those days. Our motto was open daily for lunch and dinner, but never on Tuesdays, but never say never. So anyway, I was equally as excited to be, in this place, looking at 30A and saying like, wow, this really is a blank canvas. I mean, we can actually play a role.
Which you did.
And we can actually make a difference here, because I'd seen kind of how Panama City was developing, kind of no plan. And I'd come from Fort Walton Beach and Destin, and Destin was already going crazy. And, everybody's just going like, oh my gosh, it was frustrating to see that happen. And so I was just like, wow, I get to be at the table with Robert Davis and make tradition with a bunch of people, and, shortly after we opened, I guess it was about 89 or 91, I think, me and Bob White and Johnny Earls and several other, business folks and just people who lived in the community that cared, got together and we created the Scenic 30A Business Association, and we started to put a framework together that we would, coax the commissioners to put a bike path in. Let's have a height limit. Wouldn't that be nice? Signage rules, those kind of things, and then on the Seaside front, create events, and that's kind of how you came into the picture.
Right.
So I guess without going into too much detail.
How long did it take you from the idea and envisioning the bike path to become a reality?
Well, Van S. Butler Jr. was a commissioner at the time, and he's the one that made it happen. And it wasn't like we were beating down the door saying this is what we want. We just tried to talk about it and bring it up in county commission meetings. And there was a controversial issue where a group wanted to put a restaurant in a goofy golf course in Seagrove, somewhere about where Cafe 30 is now, somewhere down there. And you had two restaurateurs, and all these people go up to the commission meeting and say, look, we really don't want this to become like Panama City. We welcome the restaurant. Please, more restaurants would be great. But let's set some guidelines so that this doesn't become an amusement attraction, and be thoughtful and
properly plan.
But the bottom line is, people today are just as passionate about this amazing, beautiful place, and it's still amazing. It's beautiful. But I remember that passion and just that feeling that let's be thoughtful about this, and let's not let this become like everywhere else. And personally, I was inspired by what Robert and Daryl, what I'd seen with them, and I've said it a million times. I mean, great design and great planning brings great value, and it has to be executed correctly, of course. But that value is intrinsic in, of course, the byproduct is good business, but it makes the place a better place to live, and even today, where do I hang out when I want to have fun or just relax or, take a walk with my 5-year-old? I go to Rosemary Beach or Alice or Seaside or Watercolor, and I walk the back trails, or we walk through the community together, and just the fact that 30A is designed, there are very few gates, it's wonderful that it's accessible by everyone.
Yes.
And
these are new urbanism communities, for the listeners that don't know what Dave is referring to, which is a magical place to be and live, like you're saying. I was just thinking that last week, like how amazing it is that you can just walk through these places. And they, like you said, that access is unusual and a gift. Yeah. Really. Pretty amazing. So were you on the board then? Like, how long were you doing that? Because you did other things with so many things for us. And I know I had started out saying that you're kind of like the unofficial mayor of 30A, which I've always said, but really a better descriptor of you, I think, would be a steward, a bearer, and an ambassador of 30A in our area. And I thank you so much for that, because you really have been a great motivator, inspirational, and a mouthpiece. And one of those examples would be you starting the Hands Across the Sand movement, which was an epic feat that you did. And if you want to tell the listeners about that, that will kind of be a segue to really let everyone know how embedded in this community you are.
Well, some people may think I'm a little too outspoken, but I don't know. Thank you for that compliment.
Yeah.
It's nice of you to say those things. But there are a lot of people that feel that way and do a lot of things for our community. Personally, I've stayed out of politics. I don't think I'll ever run for office. I think that you can get a lot done through just being a community advocate. And some things are more popular than others, and you're not always on. Not everybody loves you for what you're doing, but When I went to Meigs Junior High School in Shalimar, I won most outspoken 3 years in a row.
You've lived up to this.
I don't know what I was outspoken about when I was in junior high,
That's
but
funny.
I have a tendency to tell people what's on my mind,
Yeah.
and again, it's not super popular all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but I had the gift of, even though I have adult attention deficit disorder, I have the gift of being able to. I don't consider it a disorder. I consider it
Yeah.
a gift. It wasn't good for school, but I
Agreed.
think it's good for life.
Agreed.
I see life through a different lens. But
Mm-hmm.
but the good thing about that is when I am interested in something, I'm fully focused,
Mm-hmm.
and that I think is helpful. And David Pleat was running for Florida House of Representatives back in 2009, and I invited. He's a very dear friend of mine, and I invited him to Bud and Alley's to do a meet and greet so that he could talk about his platform. And David gave a speech about the fact that the Florida House of Representatives had passed a bill to allow for offshore oil drilling within sight of our coast here, and it also allowed them to run a network of pipelines close to the coast, and not a site, but still close to the coast. And I found that notion horrifying, and he's the person that told me about it before he had his meet and greet. So he was making that a part of his campaign stump speech, and I'm sitting there and I'm like going, we got to do something. He said write your representatives, which is, yeah, we all need to write our representatives, and that's how you get a lot of things done. But I was like, we got to do something that's going to get some attention to stop this, because if there was ever an accident that could put the coastal economies of 5 states at risk, and of course, at the time when he's given this speech, none of us knew that in April the following year, Deepwater Horizon would happen. So this was October. My wife, Carol, was pregnant with our first, and she was about to have Carlin on November 6th. So he gives a speech October 1st, and he says, we got to do something. So earlier in the night, I'm on the stage, and I had said something like, we need to draw a line in the sand. And I didn't think about it when I said it. But when he said the words, after he finished his speech, I got up and I said, I got something we can do, because I got this vision of people joining hands on the beach, because I knew that would have a very powerful impact, no matter whether you're, Republican, Democrat, didn't matter what your sexual orientation is, doesn't matter how much money you have, humans joining hands saying, hey, Floridians, people who live on the Gulf Coast saying, no, we can't expand this into Florida waters. So I described that. I said, at a future date, we need to, join hands on the beaches. And I didn't even know what it was. But within about 24 hours, I formulated the idea to create a website that would empower anyone in the state of Florida to organize a 15-minute joining of hands, not not hand-holding, because you hold hands when you're in love, but you join hands to change the world or whatever issue. So figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
So I created a website, and it was unlike anything that had ever been done previously. And on February 13th, we had on 80 beaches, 10,000 people join hands, from the entire coast of Florida,
Amazing.
everywhere. And with the aim of getting the Florida legislature to not pick it up in the Senate. Because if the Senate picked it up and then suddenly, boom, they'd vote for it and it would happen. And then 2 months later, Deepwater Horizon happened, and our greatest fears came true. And it was horrifying. Absolutely horrifying to have that happen,
It was.
And those of us who were living it, it was just absolutely scary and heartbreaking, heartbreaking. I don't like to think about it too much. But after it happened, I flew to Washington and I met with Sierra Club folks and Surfrider Foundation and a lot of the bigger environmental organizations, and I pitched the idea to do a national effort. And they loved the idea. They helped me implement it. Surfrider helped me from the very beginning, and so did Sierra Club. So I retooled the website, and then someone said, someone wants to do one in France. So it turned out to be 48 countries, events in all 50 states. I think it was like June 25th that year. And I think 6,000 people in Italy joined hands.
Unbelievable.
So if I'm ever like bummed out about anything, I just go online and look at the pictures and Google Hands Across the Sand. And my sister Dee Dee helped me from the very beginning, and she's actually the director now. She runs the event every year.
Unbelievable.
But it still happens. It's not as big as that.
Right.
But
what an amazing thing like that one person can do. It's so inspiring. I mean, you just like did what we all want to do, like change the world, help change the world. That's pretty amazing.
Well,
I mean, that's something else. And that's just who you are. And like you just live life to the absolute fullest and take charge. And I think it's something that we can all like just look back and take lessons from, really. I'm not kidding. That's unbelievable. And that was a devastating time for all of us that live here. It was 2 years into the magazine, and I'm like, how are we going to stay open if, like, there's oil out there and just everything that was going on? And I'm sure you were thinking the same thing, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that and so many other things that you have championed along the way, too. So was Carly just like when you had that event in February, she was just like a couple months old? Because I remember the picture.
Yeah.
Carlin, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was working 17 hours a day, and Carol was about ready to have a baby,
Yeah.
So she was amazing, allowing me to do this and put that kind of attention into it. And, it definitely sucked me away a little bit. But I love working with people, like-minded people, to affect change. And, you don't always succeed. I worked with an amazing bipartisan group of folks to try to incorporate South Walton County, called A Better South Walton. And we worked for 3 years together, and we got a feasibility study done. And, it got right to the edge, but it had to go into the Florida legislature. And our local representative, Brad Drake, we needed his 100% support, and we didn't really get that. And so it was kind of dead on arrival. I still believe that South Walton County needs to incorporate 3 districts, 2 city commissioners that live in each district full-time, and a mayor, so that we can sort of determine our own, future.
Right.
And it wasn't going to take anything away from the North County. But I really think that it could be a complementary thing, and maybe someone will take it up. But that was one of the initiatives after Scenic 38 Business Association.
Right.
I guess that was about 10 years later or something. I don't know. It was about 8 years ago, I guess we did that.
So with the one thing I also have known about you forever and ever is that when new restaurants open in town, you're like always one of the first people that go to the restaurant, introduce yourself, and patronize them. And then you always, shout from the rooftops, "It's a new restaurant. It's great. You got to check it out." I mean, there's a lot of class in that, Dave. I always thought it was such a class act for you to do that, but you genuinely meant it.
Well, from the very beginning, when Johnny Earls welcomed us, that really set a great example, and we're still great friends. And to me, there was always plenty of business to go around, and one of the unwritten rules was, we never steal each other's employees, and those kind of things. That seems to be happening a little more often now because it's so hard to get staff. But
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I love how there isn't a restaurateur on 30A that's not my friend or there are some that I haven't met yet, but
Not too many.
But not too many.
Yeah, right.
And the quality of food is absolutely tremendous here, and to have been kind of one of the pioneers to start that revolution of great food on 30A has been a real privilege, and it's been great to actively do that. And really, I say it started with Johnny Earls. It started with the Flowers that had the wheelhouse. Everybody remembers the old wheelhouse, and Peter and Susan Mulcahy. They had the Lake Place restaurant, and Harriet. Harriet from Cafe 30A. Harriet used to come and sit at the bar every night. She'd come in, and she lived in Montgomery, and she had a great place called Cat and Harry's in Montgomery, a very famous place. And that's actually where we got Mo Mosley, our legendary bartender, who's been with us 23 years. But Harriet has done so much to
Elevate.
Elevate, and God, the place is so consistent. It's so amazing.
It's so consistent. Yeah.
It's just fantastic, and George and Ann Hartley, and the Corchuses, that have Amici and Amigo. I mean, I'm fast forwarding, and I'm missing some people, but I can go on and on, naming extraordinary. Restaurateurs are unusual people, I think, because it's a very masochistic business to be in. It's like, and then there's nothing I'd rather do, but then I suppose being a roofer is masochistic also, but I never want to be a roofer. But I know a lot of roofers that never want to be a restaurateur.
Right.
When you think of the fabric, the tapestry really of so many wonderful people. Tommy Gallion, open Shunk Gullies. I was like, what is the Shunk Gully? I don't know what that is, but I love eating there.
Right.
It's a reef off the coast, actually. I found that out.
Oh, okay.
But
good to know.
Basmati's. Think about it.
It's a lot.
And the Grove, the new restaurant. Have you been there?
I have not.
It's fantastic.
I
Go
must
on a
go.
Sunday.
I will.
Sit outside. The fans are blowing. It's just it's heavenly out there.
Yeah. Okay. I've heard good things.
You get me started talking about restaurants on 30A and in South Walton. I could just go on and on.
Right.
But
Red Bar, landmark Red Bar too. I mean, can't forget that.
I love those guys and what they did after their place burned down. It was heartbreaking. And now you go, it's just like.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing.
It's just, that story.
Yeah.
You need to interview them.
We did. No, we had that. Well, we did have that story in the magazine too. The rebirth of that. Phoenix rises from the ashes for sure. Like unbelievable.
I begged Ollie to come work for me when he was leaving the Modicas. He worked at Modicas.
I know. I remember that.
And I was like, come work with us. And he's like, no, Dave, I'm going to go, I got this thing going down there in Grayton Beach, it might be something. And no one could make a business work there. Yeah. It just seemed like one place after another, and all of a sudden Ollie went in there, and I was like, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
5 menu items. Whoa, that's easy.
Right. Wasn't that where Johnny's Earl's restaurant was?
Yes. Yeah. That was Paradise Cafe.
Right.
And I went to eat at Paradise Cafe the first time. I came all the way from Fort Walton. I brought my girlfriend out there when I was 18, I think.
Oh, okay. Was it amazing? I never went.
It was incredible, but it was hard to get in because there was no place. And that's really what made me, one of the things that helped me to decide to say yes when Scott asked me to open Button Alley's. It was the fact that Paradise Cafe was so busy. Mm-hmm. And, as soon as we opened our doors in the summertime, we were really only busy 3 or 4 months out of the year. Mm-hmm. But there was a 3-hour wait to get in Button Alley's in the summer. And we had a jazz combo outside, and the herb garden area, the courtyard in the back of the restaurant was where that was our holding pin for people who wanted to wait.
Right.
and they'd go to perspicacity, but I'd stand at the front door and I'd say, I'm sorry if you don't have a reservation, but we have so much for you to do. We have jazz out back, but it's going to be a 3-hour wait for a table. And people would go, oh, we don't care. we ain't going nowhere else. You know?
Unbelievable.
And so they'd go out and sit and drink for 3 hours, and the kids would go on the beach. And, you know, they'd shop at Perspicacity, and I know Daryl loved it because, you know, it was sort of a built-in business for her.
Yeah, amazing.
And I would never turn anybody away. And Scott would get mad at me sometimes because he'd be like, Dave, you got to say no to some people because, you know, he's the one back there huffing it in the kitchen.
Right.
I got in trouble with him a lot. But let me say a little about Scott.
I know. I love Scott, too. So.
You know, you knew Scott, and he moved to Central Florida. I bought him out in, I think, 2006, after 20 years of partnership. And I love Scott, and I miss him. He incredibly talented artist, fisherman, waterman. You know, we surfed together. Humorist, writer. You know, you name it. I mean, Scott could do it, and I do miss him. But to be able to be in business with someone for 20 years and to still love him.
Yeah. You were a good partner.
You know,
good partners. Yeah.
Well, we were 60-40. I loved being the 40%er because I was kind of afraid to be the guy, you know, and so I would always give him my opinion, though. Yeah. And we made decisions together, and that's what made it work. And we were complete opposites as well. So. But
then you became the guy.
Yeah, I know, and
really...
I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. It was scary.
Did you?
know?
Did you end up liking it? Do you end up liking it? Yeah,
yeah,
because you're good at it.
But I still love having a partner. I mean, and I was never adverse to the idea of getting another partner, and you know that brings me to Phil McDonald.
Yeah, and Black Bear.
You know, I was always tremendously impressed with Phil's abilities and you know, well-rounded, level-headed guy, and you know, really amazingly talented chef. You know, if anyone deserves a James Beard Award, it's him. And so I used to eat it. I'd go to Robert's events, and Phil and Madra would be there, and
Table 5 cooking.
And he had a guest chef thing going, and I was always impressed. And so once again, I'd be surfing with Phil. He's a surfing buddy, and every now and then I'd say, "Hey, man, we should open a restaurant together someday." And I brought it up over a decade, probably 2 or 3 times, and one thing led to another, and you know, we developed a Black Bear Bread Company with an amazing team of creative people, and
opening to rave reviews since day one, and never looking back.
I know.
Never looking back.
It's kind of scary how much people love that.
Oh, they love that place.
It's like they would kill us if we ever closed.
Right. And then you opened another one recently in Seaside, and your first one.
But you know, part of my motivation from the very beginning, after I bought Scott out, when I opened Taco Bar, there was no Mexican food in Walton County. So I was just filling a niche. I was like, what don't we have? Okay, let's do Mexican. Same with the wood-fired Naples-style pizza. No one was doing anything like that. Bruno's has always been amazing. I love it. And I love Pizza by the Sea. I love their crispy crust. It's so good. But wood-style wood-fired Naples-style pizza, you know, no one had been doing that. So I wanted an authentic Italian restaurant, and Robert Davis wanted one, and he asked me to open that place. So the reason that we opened Black Bear is because no one was doing really amazing bread, and Phil was like, "Hey, I can make up some bread." He doesn't sound like that.
Yeah.
But I don't need to give Phil an accent. Sorry,
no.
But that's what, you know, he's like, he made a starter and started throwing bread in the pizza oven at Pizza Bar because he was working at Pizza Bar. And he was developing some great bread. And it was like, okay, well, let's just start selling it at the farmer's market. And so we started doing that. And I already had this catering building in Grayton. And so anyway,
that's how the idea.
That was an amazing project that turned into 3 restaurants in 5 years. And we didn't ever think that we were going to go that quickly with it. But, you know,
Yeah, that's pretty
when
impressive.
you have an opportunity to open a place in Grand Boulevard, you know, that's something you don't
Yeah.
want to sneeze at. And then Seaside came knocking, and it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
you know, Micah and Robert wanted us to open one there. And so we're going to pull back the reins, though, because
You are.
we've got enough going on.
Yeah.
And our bar room next to the Grayton Beach location is now an event space.
Yep.
Exclusively. So we are booking events there like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
crazy.
because there's also such a niche for that too. You are always filling them, and there are so few event spaces
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So that was pretty smart.
But I'm not going to open the Asian noodle bar. I've always wanted to, though. Someone else needs to do that.
Is Nikhil doing that?
Oh,
No.
that's right.
Is he?
Nikhil did that.
Okay.
But I was going to open one in Seaside years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know anything about Asian food. I had just gone to Vietnam, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just very inspired. And you know, I did not do that. But yeah, you're right. Nikhil's doing a fantastic job with
Yeah.
Bamboo.
He is.
And Nikhil's going to open
Yeah.
a Brazilian, a Polynesian tiki bar
Yeah.
themed restaurant in Seaside where Pizza Bar was.
Yes.
And I think that they're about to open that in December, the fall or the spring of next year.
So many different choices.
And I'm welcoming Nikhil. He's
Yes.
a super cool guy.
He is. He is.
I just can't say enough about him as
Yeah,
well.
he really is. Well, this is for the viewers out there, this is Dave Rauschkolb standing proudly on the rooftop of his new empire that wasn't done yet that day and looking fine and looking like a movie star that he is there. And our team has a funny story about that because you just were like walking like almost like Batman scaling walls and everything and like, oh, come on up. I'm like, okay, we're just following you blindly, like walking up. I'm like, I hope no one falls off this roof. It was like,
We were kind of halfway through construction,
Right.
and it wasn't completely finished. And of course, it took 3 years and cost twice as much. And that's just the way it is.
Another
these
story,
days.
yeah.
But another story. But
Yeah.
but you know, first off,
that came
I
out
mean,
phenomenal.
I've got shorts and flip flops on underneath that. No, I'm just kidding. Lisa knows that you don't get me in a dinner jacket very often. You know, I'm usually like when I got a t-shirt and
Yes.
flip flops on right now.
That's
but,
a great
but
jacket.
You made me look really good.
You look good.
And I know there has to be some Photoshop there, but
No, there's not.
But I made them put a ladder. I got these guys up on the roof because I figured that was just the best shot.
It
Because
was.
there wasn't going
It
to be
was.
any scaffolding in the background or anything.
It was
But,
exciting. It was very
yeah.
exciting, a teeny bit scary, but that's okay. And I want to ask you about the dining experience up there that you were telling us about that is going to be private. But is it private dining up there? Like, can you go up there and reserve that space up there?
No,
Oh, you can't?
no, we don't
Okay.
have handicap access.
Okay.
So I'm working on that.
Okay.
I'm working on a lift design that
Ah.
will lift folks in handicaps.
Okay. 'Cause
I
that
mean,
would-
I mean in wheelchairs up there.
That would be a
But-
magical place to be able to have dinner like you were
Oh, for
envisioning.
sure.
Yeah,
yeah,
at the beginning.
for
but-
sure. Yeah, it is beautiful. We have a third-story tower like that up there, but you know, it's pretty magical to eat downstairs.
oh, I know
and
that.
I say downstairs on the new expanded roof deck.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
You know, D. Ruth Adani was a former town architect of Seaside, and I've always loved D. Ruth just for him being D. Ruth, but it was a no-brainer for me to choose him to be the architect, and
It's a
he's
beautiful
very
building.
close to Robert. He did a beautiful job on, well, everything he does is amazing, but it didn't take me long to approve that design. It was pretty fast-tracked because I thought it was extremely functional, and we needed an elevator as well, but we literally tripled the roof deck space, and it doesn't feel
Right.
too big. And it also opened up the roof deck to the north, you know, opening up the townscape views, and the view corridors are just so much more expanded.
Yeah. You. Not that the place didn't look good before, but what you did there beautified that entire space. Like really, really changed it for the better.
Yeah.
You know, it looks really, really amazing. So life isn't easy. Hard work isn't easy either. But like, on this journey that you've been on right now in your life with everything, is it everything that you had aspired to, or is it like even past what you thought you were going to end up doing with that restaurant that's like a gorgeous, iconic building?
You mean specifically about Buds? Or?
About Buds, yeah,
Oh, okay.
specifically about that. Well, everything else, because now you have other restaurants too with
Well,
Black Bear and
you
all
know,
that.
I mean, again, what I said earlier, when I get focused or I'm passionate about something, I can't help myself. But I don't know. I think philosophically, I could say that, you know, my life has surpassed my dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, I never imagined that I'd ever, you know, be involved with so many things and get to do pretty much, you know, really neat stuff. You know, that's a mild way of putting it.
Right.
But things that keep me engaged and excited. Right. And you know, I never thought I'd ever be a father. I mean,
Congratulations.
You know,
Two beautiful kids. Oh my
Thank
God,
you.
they're gorgeous.
Yeah, I have a hard time not getting choked up when I think about my kids. But
They're
you know,
beautiful.
my wife Carol, I met her in 2000, and it took me a while to pop the question. 7 years, but you know, I wouldn't change a thing,
Yeah.
and I know she wouldn't either. Having two daughters, 12 and 5, has just been the most exciting and inspiring thing.
Yeah, you have a
And
beautiful family.
and being a 60-year-old dad
Yeah.
is a little different. I mean,
But you're a young 60.
thanks. But when I went to my, I think it was my 30-year high school reunion, Carol was out here about to have our first, and they gave me an award for being the oldest dad with an unborn child.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, all my buddies have grandkids, so
Yeah.
that's my goal, is to you
Yeah.
know get to
Yes.
you know, hold some grandkids in
You
my
will.
arms before I kick the bucket.
Yeah, wow, you definitely will. Wow. So what's the future hold, do you think? Just enjoying your kids and, you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah, you know, part of why I bought, actually Robert Davis sold me the Bud and Alley's building and land, and I did want to say that, you know, Giroux did a beautiful job of mixing the old and the new.
He did.
And you know, when you think of being in business for 36 years, people have very, very strong feelings about you know, that generations of folks have been eating there, and they come back every year, and I have not had one person say, "Oh, you ruined it," you know.
Right, because you didn't. You improved on it.
Yeah, and that's what needed to happen. But when I saw that design, I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
This
did it.
really is great,
Yeah.
and we've gotten tons of positive feedback. But to your point or your question, I didn't want to work for all those years and then, you know, have a new landlord at some point, or have somebody say, "Oh, well, we like Bud and Alley's, but you know, we're going to let you go."
Yeah.
And I just I wanted to pass that legacy on to my kids if they wanted to do it. And you know, Robert gave me a tremendous opportunity to buy that property, and he's not given that opportunity to anyone else ever.
Yeah.
And so I love Robert and Daryl. You know, they're
Me too. Yeah. A lot of amazing things have happened for all of us because of who they are.
Yeah.
And they're quite remarkable, and I always knew and thought that, but as I get older and am still in relationship with them on a couple of different projects that we're doing right now, I find it even deeper than I have felt before.
Rock steady, you know,
Yeah.
just steady hand. You know, I know what I'm going to get, and it's not always going to be yes.
Yes, yeah.
and that's good. That's a good thing. And Micah has just,
Yeah, he's great.
he's amazing, and what great for his parents that he's willing to, you know, play a role in the continuing legacy
And
of
the legacy,
Seaside.
yeah.
And I can only hope that my daughters will do the same. So far, the 12-year-old is like, nah, I don't think so, but you know, she could change her mind.
Right.
And the 5-year-old's like, all ready, we're ready to go.
Oh, really?
She's she's a force to be reckoned with. She's a lot like I am, I guess, you know.
Yeah. Well,
but
that's a good thing.
very outspoken, I could say.
I love it. And she's such a cutie. Oh my
Yeah.
God, so cute. Well, I mean, there's been so many events, you know, Bud and Alley's has hosted so many different events for charities and whatnot. And then all the wine dinners. So like way back when I was there, and Robert Mondavi was there. That was like one of the most magical nights of my life. Was that one of yours?
Lydia Bastianich and Robert Mondavi. And, you know, that's the whole thing about Seaside. In the very early days, all the major major magazines would do photo shoots, and you know, you never knew what kind of famous people would show up, and it was kind of the cool place to be, and it still is.
Right.
But I remember Jimmy Buffett came in, and when he was writing A Pirate Turns 50, and he'd come in, and we'd let him sit out in the herb garden and eat, because he would always bring his dog, and Sheryl Crow, and you know, you name it. The Manning brothers come regularly. You know, I mean, it's just a cool place.
Right. I had Erica as a guest, Erica Pierce, on a couple months ago, and she was recounting a story of the Truman Show, and I had asked her about what that experience was like, and then she was talking about you on the podcast, and that you were Bud and Alley's hosted like after the premiere or something, and Jim Carrey was getting up there and talking about like the whole experience and all that.
That didn't happen at Bud and Alley's. I think that happened at the Red Bar.
Okay, the Red Bar.
Yeah, there was a big party at the Red Bar, but
what was that like?
It was so fun.
So fun.
I mean, it was like the circus coming to town.
Yeah.
And I got to meet Peter Weir when he was scouting, and he's this charming, brilliant Australian guy, and you know, and very down to earth, and you know, we were just sort of allowed, me and my friends Willie and Leah were allowed to be on the set the entire time, and we could come and go as we pleased, and we could eat with the crew, and we just sort of endeared ourselves to the crew and everybody, and they'd come to the restaurant, and to have that sort of access is unprecedented. And one of the sound guys said that. And we just instantly became friends. But my friend Willie said, "Now, Dave, I know you're going to want to be in the movie, but I think that the best thing we can do is just tell them, if they ask and when they asked, that we don't want to be in the movie." And I was like, okay, you know, okay. So I played along. Yeah. And by the end of the filming, they were practically begging us to be in the movie. Yeah, well, I'm the one at the very end, on the last 2 days of shooting. Yeah. I broke down because Wendy Weir said, "Dave, you've got to be in the movie," you know. And I was like, I don't know if that's an Australian accent.
That was good. That was good. Bravo.
And so I said, okay. So they gave me a speaking part, and of course I screwed it up. And Jim Carrey made fun of my lack of acting prowess.
Low blow.
And so my speaking part was cut, but I still got residual checks. But yeah,
that's great.
Like $20 from Paramount Pictures. You know, it's kind of fun to get them though. It's like, oh wow, I got another check. You know?
That's great.
But yeah, it was like the circus coming to town, and they were here for 6 months, and you know, we made great friends, and it was fascinating. Yes. And then we all got rented limos and went to the premiere
in Fort Walton
Beach, to the Santa Rosa Mall, and got all tuxed up. I mean, it was hilarious. It was so fun.
Well, so many experiences that the most people in the world just do not get to have.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your story, but I also want to thank you for being you and being part of the fabric of this community. Without you in it, it wouldn't be the same. And I think everything that you've done has just been super wonderful. And you've championed a lot of causes, and you've helped a lot of people. And I'm glad to know you. Thank you for being here.
I love knowing you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this interview with Dave, sharing his story of being here for 36 years and helping grow a community. You've been listening to VIE Speaks, Conversations with Heart and Soul. And check out Dave's restaurants, Black Bear, in 3 different locations, and that is Seaside, Grand Boulevard, and right next door here in Grayton Beach. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.